Hey there. Have you ever been running around in the woods and forgotten which way you gotta go to get out? If you have, then this is the video for you, because today we'll be talking about each of the different ways that you can extract from the Woods map as a PMC and escape from Tarkov. Woods is a very large map with room for all sorts of activities, and as such has room for all sorts of extracts as well. All told, there are 8 options available to PMCs in any given raid, and they are the 3 marked in turquoise here, and the 5 marked in blue down here. The yellowish-orange ones are scav extracts, so we won't be talking about them today. But for the most part, the PMC extracts work the same way they do in any other map, and that is if you split the map in half vertically, and you spawn on one half, then you can only use the extracts available on the other half, with 2 exceptions being Bridge Car Extract and Factory Gate. We'll talk about why they're exceptions later on, but like I said, it's very important to think of the map split in half vertically, but I also like to think of the map split horizontally, not quite in half, kind of centered on the logging camp in the middle of the map. This gives us these 4 quadrants. There are 0 PMC extracts available in the northwest, 3 available in the northeast, 3 in the southeast, and 2 in the southwest. So as you can see, so long as you're not in the northwest quadrant, chances are you're not too far from at least a couple of the PMC extracts on the map. The important thing to note, however, is that some of these are what I call unreliable extracts, which means even if you have them on your list and you go sit in them, you may not always be able to escape through them, because for no particular reason, they're just closed. So the first thing we're going to go over is which ones are 100% reliable and always open, and then we're going to go over the unreliable ones and how you can tell when they are open for you to escape through. These are the locations of each of the reliable extracts on the map. They are Northern UN Roadblock in the northeast, UN Roadblock in the southeast, and Outskirts in the southwest. The rest are all what I would consider unreliable extracts. That doesn't mean they're useless by any means, but it's important to know if you plan to use one of them that there's a very real chance for it not to work, and therefore it's important to be able to fall back on the knowledge of these 3 reliable extracts in the event that your first plan does fail. The first step to being able to use any extract at all is to be able to identify it when you see it. So next we're going to look at some pictures of what each extract looks like, and then after that we're going to go over some routes that I like to take to each one and talk about which circumstances will lead up to me choosing those routes. Alright, going through these extracts, starting with the reliable ones. First we have the Northern UN Roadblock. It is this big blue gate at the end of a dirt road on the eastern wall of the map. Pretty much anywhere you see this big blue gate and this white and blue sign on Woods is an extract. If there's only one big blue gate that's actually unreliable, yeah, for the most part when you see these, you know you're in a good spot, or not far from one. But this one, Northern UN Roadblock, has these red and white barriers, storage containers, some broken wall sections, and power lines going over along with these gates. The extraction zone is kind of between this red pylon and the gate, all the way back to these broken wall sections. The timer will start here, and you can pretty much run back to the section and be pretty well covered without any issue. It's really not that long of a run, and this area is pretty isolated, so the odds of getting into a fight are pretty slim here, unless you're extracting at the same time as anyone else. But anyway, next is UN Roadblock, southeast corner of the map, same big blue gate, but this one has a little bit more cover. There's another wall here that covers most of this road section. Yeah, standing pretty much anywhere on this road within this big square here will extract you. And there's a lot of wall space to take cover behind, and again, unless you're pushing inside of it at the exact same moment that someone else is, chances are pretty good you'll get out without too much of a fight. The next one is Outskirts on the other side of the map. It's on the west side of the lake. It's kind of this big area around this truck that's broken down in the middle of the road. If you know where Scav House is and what that looks like, if you just keep following the road south of that, then eventually you'll get to this truck and you'll get to this extract. It's a huge area, so pretty much just run at the truck and eventually you might pass the truck before you finish the timer for the extract. So next up, we've got the unreliable extracts, starting with Bridge Car Extract. And this works the same way that any other vehicle extract works in the game. For those that don't know, you pay a small fee. By default, it's 5,000 rubles, and it's adjusted based on your scav karma. And that starts a 60-second extract timer, and you're free to walk away as far as you want to go. But so long as you are back at the car at the end of the timer, then it will drive away and take you with it. And you can do that with up to 3 friends, though everyone has to pay individually. The problem is there's only one car, so it can only be used once, which is why even though this car spawns every raid reliably, this is not a reliable extract because it can only be used one time. As you can see, and as the name implies, this car is at the start of a bridge, and that bridge is located in the village in the northeastern corner of the map, north of northern UN Roadblock. And it's pretty simple to tell whether or not this has been used or not. You just look at the bridge, and if you see the car there, it has not been used, and if there's no car, then someone's taken it already and you have to go somewhere else. Next up, we have got ZB016. This is a bunker in the middle of the woods. This is probably the single hardest extract to find on the map, especially when it's closed, because it's really just a hole in the ground in the middle of the woods, and this whole map is woods. Yeah, when it is open, there's this big bright green flare that's visible from a pretty long way away, and that makes it a lot easier to find when you're looking for it. But if you don't have a good sense of where it is and it's closed, then it's very difficult to find. This is situated pretty much directly southeast of the airplane crash and almost directly east of Jaeger's camp, where you have to find the letter to unlock his shop. Again, if it's open, you can pretty much just run around looking for the flare. If it's closed, then my best advice would be to look out for this big flat rock with some bushes sprouting out of it and fallen sticks on it. Look for the entrance on that, because it's kind of like the foundation that this bunker is built into. So other than that, you just gotta kind of find it a couple times and get a good sense of where it is so you can remember for the future if you want to find your way into it even when it's closed. Next up, we have Factory Gate. This is kind of like Bridge Car Extract in that it's a little bit weird. It is always available and always open regardless of where you spawn. It'll always be in your list, but it's still marked as unreliable because it is a co-op extract. That is to say, you cannot use this extract unless there is a PMC and a scav present in the zone at the same time. So you pretty much have to negotiate your way to some peace, no matter how tenuous, and make your way over to this big red gate on the southern wall of the map. This is really far away from like any loot or anything like that, so the only fight you're likely to get into is if you get betrayed by the person you're supposed to be cooperating with, or if you betray them. Not recommended because you can get good stuff from the reward for doing this extract. But, you know, it happens. Pretty much the thing to look out for is the big red gate, and there are these train tracks right next to it. They go up to the big road in the southeast corner of the map, and they kind of cross over it and put like a big concrete cap on it. So if you see those train tracks and you're looking for it, then just follow those to the southern wall, and you'll find the extract. Next up, we have RUAF Roadblock. This is the other big blue gate, the third and final one on the map. It's also the only unreliable one. As you can see, there's this big bright green flare here. That's the signal that it's open, and it's sitting on top of the red pylon instead of on the ground, so that means you can see it from much farther away. But even if you can't really quite get a line of sight to tell if the flare is there or not, and you do come here, it is pretty darn close to the UN Roadblock extract. So you can just run along this road away from the gate, and like in this grass to the right of the road, it's very safe. And you should be able to get to UN Roadblock without too much issue in that area. Next up, we have ZB014. It's the last extract we have to talk about, and it's all the way on the west end of the map, just a little north of Outskirts. This is another bunker extract like ZB16, except this one's a little easier to find because there's this big pile of rocks that it's kind of tucked under, and you can kind of see the corner of it here, but there's a big long fence that extends far to the left of this picture, and it's very easy to find that fence because there's also like really tall construction equipment near it. And I believe the wall continues a little bit further to the right of these rocks as well. But yeah, finding this extract is as simple as finding that fence and then making sure you go to the right pile of rocks. Because there is one other pile that's kind of like separated from the fence, but that's the only other like spot to fake you out. So if you go to the wrong pile of rocks first, it's pretty simple to just go to the other pile of rocks and find the door here. The final note about this is that even if it is open and it's available to you, you have to have a key to actually get into the extraction zone. It is called the ZB014 key. Pretty simple, it's just the name of the extract, and they're relatively common, and if you don't have one and you have the flea market unlocked, then they're very cheap to buy. Once you have that, you can use it anytime, or even if you don't have the key, it may still be worth checking out because there's a solid chance that someone else has unlocked the door either to use the extraction themselves or to get some of the loot that's locked behind that door. But yeah, that's the last of the extracts we're going over today. Just as a refresher, the reliable extracts are Northern UN Roadblock and Outskirts with the green borders. The unreliable extracts are Bridge Vehicle Extract, ZB16, Factory Gate, RUAF Roadblock, and ZB014 outlined in red. And yeah, being able to identify each of those is pretty much the most important information you need. So if that's all you're looking for, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you found it informative. But if you want a little more in-depth information, then next we're going to talk about some of the routes that I take to each extract and what situations lead me to pick which one I'm going to. And yeah, either way, if you are finding the video informative, I would really appreciate it if you would dab on that like button, yeet that subscribe, and turn notifications on for more Tarkov guides and content in the future. But with that out of the way, let's start talking about the routes. So the first route we're going to talk about is a route to the always reliable northern UN roadblock from just south of the village area. I tend to take this anytime I'm rotating from the center of the map. If I don't want to go down towards like the logging camp and through this choke point, I'll generally cross over the mountain here. Or if I'm just looking for scav kills on the village and the car is taken or whatever, or, you know, if I don't want to take the car, I'll tend to go about this way from this overlook down and around to the northern UN roadblock. So to show you what it looks like, we'll run through it together on double speed, and I'll point out some landmarks and things to look out for. And that'll be what we do for the rest of the routes going forward as well. So we're starting here kind of east of the mountain, looking at it. That's the main mountain up there. The village is down there. That's the overlook that I like to sit on to snipe down on scavs. And the collection of buildings is a little further south. So this is a good area to snipe from, but a lot of people like it, so there tends to be like a medium amount of traffic. Anytime you hear like pop shots going off at the village, it's probably someone sitting up here. But an important thing to look out for is there is another good bit of traffic in this little village, because these buildings have some pretty solid loot in them. There's like some provision crates and weapon mod crates in there, and I think there's a tech spawn in that building. The UN roadblock, northern UN roadblock extract is over behind it. So instead of crossing directly through that compound, it's a little safer to go around out here. You can run all the way around on this hill, but be very careful. Once you pass this gate here, don't fall down there, because that's out of bounds and you'll either get sniped or mined or you'll just die. I've never jumped down myself, but you can safely assume with the way the rest of the boundaries work on this map that you will not survive if you jump down past this gate. But yeah, so long as you stay up here, you're allowed to run. So long as you're cautious when you're sticking out like in front of the road right about here, so long as no one else is looking that way, then you should be fine. But yeah, from here it's just a straight shot. No real bells and whistles, not a lot of cover, but it is kind of a big ravine, so you have that to your advantage. There's not big wide sight lines. Yeah, you can just sit behind that wall, and that is that. The next route that we're going to talk about takes us from the road just north of the logging camp through the choke point just south of the central mountain on the map and through the woods to ZB016. It's not exactly a 100% reliable extract, but it is a little closer than going to northern UN roadblock from here, and if it is open, it saves you the trouble of walking through the open in that compound just north of northern UN roadblock. But anyway, this place is pretty dangerous. There can be scavs on both sides of this rock in front of me. A lot of PMCs come through here because it's a choke point and they can hide all in those rocks, all up top. There's loot up there, so there's reason to go up there. They can be coming around from here. Again, this choke point cuts off a lot of traffic through the map, so if a lot of people who are trying to change sides will go through that. But you can listen to people fighting scavs, and if you hear them in the area, then you know someone is in fact there. But anyway, from here you just go through that choke point, kind of run off into the woods, find the plane crash, and run perpendicular to the trail, kind of from the middle. Run into this forest, and if it's open, you can start to see the smoke from there, and find your way into that foundation, and all the way in behind the flare inside. So because of the flare on the outside, it is a pretty easy extract to find when it is open, but significantly harder when it's closed. So even if you don't know the exact location, if you just run around these woods for a minute or two and you don't see any flare anywhere, then you can pretty safely move on and say that it's closed. Now, say you run to ZB016 and it's closed. Where do you go? The easiest option is northern UN roadblock. Again, this is the fallback, old reliable. It's not far. So there's ZB016 right there. There's the mountain. There's the military camp is down there. The UN roadblock exfil and the road next to it is all over there. And northern UN roadblock is over here. So the thing you want to look for is that wall on the right there, or in this area. Eventually that curves out into the middle of the map right here and has some broken segments for you to run through. and that takes you by this mountain. And if you just run right around the corner of this mountain, you're like right on top of the northern UN roadblock. So it's really not that far from ZB016. It's just kind of convoluted because you have to run around a couple corners, but you can just exfil the same way you did before. And that is that. So say you run to ZB016 and you find out it's closed, can't escape through there, but you also hear all this ruckus from northern UN roadblocks area, like in that compound or the village above it, or for whatever reason, you don't want to go that way. The next best option would be the other reliable extract on this side of the map, and that's UN Roadblock. So you kind of run away from ZB016 the same direction, but instead of running away into the north, you run away into the south. We're in the same spot. The logging camp's over there, the military base is that way, northern UN Roadblock is that way. And again, you kind of take off in the same direction away from ZB016, but instead of north, you go south. And you just run through this really big field. You can kind of keep yourself obscured in these rocks. You should be careful around those rocks in particular. There have been times where scavs can spawn there. I haven't seen any of this wipe, but that was a thing in the past, and who knows when they'll bring it back. But you have to run past this big old station. That fence, you can't like scoot around on the inside. You have to go around the end like we did here. And just through these rocks, over the bushes, over the hills, until you see another wall. You go through the hole in this wall, and here we are at UN Roadblock. Sit on top of the wall and sit on top of the road, excuse me, and you will get out of there just fine. Alright, our next route takes us to the RUAF Roadblock extract from the area between the logging camp, the military base, and the shore of the lake. I pretty much only use this route when I'm doing quests in the area, or I'm looting the military base, or I've looted the west half of the map and my extracts are on the east. If I'm in the outskirts area without that as my extract, then I'll run around the lakeshore under the logging camp, and we'll take this route. But the military base is right there. There was some quest items on the lakeshore to the right. If you don't mind fighting some scavs, you can rotate up over here, kind of in these hills. You could go further and take cover at those rocks if you need to, or you could run down at the low ground at the lakeshore. It's just important to note that if you start taking sniper fire from anywhere in this field, it's probably these rocks over here on the right. Oftentimes people will camp there for the shooter-borne and head-and kills on people in that field. It's a very wide open area for that. But the RUAF roadblock is right over here. You just follow the wall from that corner and go to the blue truck. Now, you'll remember from our screenshots earlier in the video, there should be a green flare on this pylon if it's open, so this one is not open. You would have to actually go to a different extract entirely. Without a doubt, the most convenient alternate extract when RUAF roadblock is closed is the UN roadblock. It's just on the other end of the road from here, and there's a lot of real estate on the side of the map, on the far side of the road from the rest of the map, where you can kind of hide behind these hills and be really safe from people out in the field or like really anywhere. It's very hard to see anything back here from anywhere else on the map, unless they're like on this section of road with you, in which case it's much easier to see them when you're over here as well. So you're pretty well covered. We're going right past the factory gate extract, which we're going to talk about next. It's that big red wall there. But you just keep on running. It's a straight shot once you're past the factory gate. Thankfully we got all these bushes. It does flatten out here, so you're a little less covered by the hills, but again, the bushes do a good job covering you, and there's bushes on the other side of the road that do the same. And thankfully you don't even have to go around the big wall to get into here, because there's holes on all three sides, while also allowing you enough cover to remain safe from anyone who may try and camp the exfil. Since we just ran past it, the next extract we're going to talk about is the factory gate extract. Like we said earlier, it's a little bit of a weird one in that no matter where you spawn, it's always going to be on your list, and it's always open, but it's not reliable in the fact that a scav and a PMC have to cooperate together and sit there without killing each other in order to use the extract at all. So, as you might know from your own experience, that's not exactly an easy thing to negotiate. And as you can see, if you sit here when you're solo, or you don't have both components required, it'll say you need to cooperate with a scav in order to extract here if you're a PMC, or it'll say you need a PMC if you're playing as a scav. As far as routes are concerned, you pretty much take whatever route you can get if you can find someone to cooperate with. I think the farthest route I took was when I was playing as a scav once. I was going to USEC camp over in this area, and a PMC shot at me once or twice, but I wiggled at him, And he stopped shooting, and we started talking, and we crossed the entire map together. And it was worth it because it's a lot of fence rep, and there's a chance at good loot. I haven't ever gotten anything good from the gift that you get for using a co-op extract, but I've heard of people getting like lab keycards and other really expensive stuff. But the reliable thing is that you will get a boatload of rep with fence. So that's really what I care about when I'm doing these. Now, as far as landmarks are concerned, the big ones are these railroad tracks in front of us, and that big cap covering the railroad tracks on the road. And those are right next to a big truck. And just past the railroad tracks, they do end right on the other side of the road, but there is a big gas tanker, a big white gas tanker that's pretty easy to spot from anywhere in the field, just about. And pretty much if you see any of those 3 or 4 signs, then you know you're in the right area, and you just look for the big red door, and you're good to go with your buddy if you have one. Moving back to the northeastern quadrant, we have a couple routes to go over for the bridge vehicle extract. This one is starting in about the same spot that we started in for the northern UN Roadblock extract. We're a little bit west of the village, and kind of at that overlook. The mountain is over there, the compound to our right, the village to our left. Here's the cheeky sniper spot. You know, you can sit in these bushes, poke away at some scavs down there, or players if they're loitering, you know. The safest way I find is to run as far east on this hill as you can. Make sure no one's coming up along the field and everything. No scavs are running around out there. Sometimes they do leave the village to go sit in the field, so you do have to be a little careful. But as far as players are concerned, it's pretty rare for them to come out this far. So most of the time you're safe if you go out this far yourself. But you can go all the way down to the riverbank, or, you know, within 100 feet of it or so. But you can come up to this big embankment they built up to the bridge, peek your little head over to make sure no one else is around there, and voila, you're at the car extract. And you just have to watch out for 1 whole minute as the timer kicks down. So the other route that we'll talk about for the bridge vehicle extract starts in the Sunken village, which is in the northwestern quadrant, just a little east of the scav bunker and just a little south of the riverbank. And pretty much it's just a straight shot up the riverbank, but it's helpful to see exactly what it looks like. So here we are, that's the church in the lake, the scav bunker's over there where that little radio tower was. And, you know, here are the buildings. I find it best to hug the riverbank as much as possible because it's pretty well sloped. You should be really careful about going too close to the bank though, or to the actual water's edge, because sniper scav, the boundary sniper scav that is, will get a little overzealous sometimes and shoot you even though you can't actually really go out of bounds. It's just to keep you on your toes really. So don't go too close, but do keep your head covered by that hill on your right. Yeah, you have to run to these rocks and hop on over. You don't actually have to hop, they're pretty lightly sloped, so you can just walk over them. But it's important to be careful when you're walking in the open like this, because if someone is at the bridge vehicle extract taking it, then they can see you pretty clearly. So at this point it might be a little safer to walk in the trees, but if you're just going for speed, then you can take the direct line on the riverbank. Or if you hear fighting in the village, then you'd probably be a little more covered being on the riverbank, just so they have more trees between you and them. But again, like we did from the other way, peek your head up over, and if it's clear, then you're good to go. Pretty straightforward, like we said, but it helps to see what it all looks like, you know? Alright, moving to the 2 extracts that we have at the southwestern quadrant. This one is going to ZB14, starting just south of the USEC camp. The USEC camp is just at the top of that hill. These are where the mines are. The Sunken village is that way, and the scav village, scav bunker is back behind the USEC camp over there. And yeah, like we said, USEC camp's directly behind us. So we pretty much just run straight south. It's important to be careful around here. There is no like wall or anything, but there are like mines and snipers if you go too far to the west here. So the only hint that you're about to run into there is that there are some little signs that are kind of easy to miss way out in the field. So really, by the time you get to that power tower to our right, you want to be on the east side of the road, and you just want to keep running south until you see this construction equipment. Watch out for people. They sometimes sit at those rocks and overlook this whole field. But this is the wall that approaches ZB14. That's the fake pile of rocks. It is not in those. It is in this one that is directly touching the wall. As you can see, ZB14 is closed because there's no flare, but you know, that's how you get there. Again, pretty straightforward, but generally low traffic, so really the biggest threat in most scenarios is the boundary sniper and the boundary mines to your right if you're running south, or just to your west in general, whichever way you're facing. But yeah, if you just watch out for the signs and be careful, you should be able to get there, no problems at all. Alright, the other route we're going to talk about for ZB014, it starts in the checkpoint area, which is the little building straddling the road just west of the logging camp and just north of the really dense forest outside the logging camp. On the north side of this road, the forest is a little more sparse, but if you stay on the south side of the road and continue going west, that opens out into wide open field. But if you stay north of the road, then the tree cover continues. Still kind of sparse, but enough for decent cover. So you can stay safe by rotating around this north end of the field and staying a little ways in the trees. You should watch out for the hills to the south, just because people do like to look out and snipe there. But to stay the most safe, you can rotate around the outside of this wall so that no one can really shoot you or pen through that wall. And from there, you just hop on the rocks and go around and down. And again, we talked about this earlier, but you do need a key to actually use this extract. This is what it looks like, and the name is once again ZB014 key. And that's pretty much that. The extract wasn't open there, but you can still open up the door if you want, and you have the key, because there's a box or two full of loot down there. So if you do approach ZB014 from any route and find that it's closed, then the only real option is to go to Outskirts. It's just a little ways south, but you do have to go across the scav house area, which tends to have a lot of scavs, as the name implies. But from the entrance of the bunker, you just kind of keep heading south. You can circle around in this forest. The scavs don't aggro from too far out unless they're out in those tree stumps over there, but if they're up in the field by the house, then generally they'll leave you alone. If you stay this far out, you can circle around the rock. And from there, you're pretty well covered by the trees, and then the hills after that. From here, it's just a straight shot down to the road. You can see the busted down car right about there. And really, it's like we talked about earlier, it is a huge area. You don't even have to get close to the car. I think you can, if you sprint fast, you can get to the car with about 4 seconds left, but that's not really much time that you'll need to take cover. Alright, the next route we're going to talk about takes us back to the checkpoint area, but instead of going to ZB014, we end up going to Outskirts instead, through the dense forest to the south of this road. But you can see we're starting in just about the exact same spot. The checkpoint building's there, the logging camp's to the left, and then this forest is directly in front of us. Out further to the right is the big field that is leading up to ZB014. But through here, there's a marked circle, and if you're running through here at night, there can be cultists in this area between here and the logging camp. They can pretty much run around anywhere in this forest, really, but that's where I found them the most, is near that circle. There can be regular scavs all through here. There's a little cabin with some decent quality loot in it. A lot of times I found like really good night vision goggles in there, or like good suppressors and things of that nature. Some provisions as well, and good ammo can spawn on those boxes outside. So it's worth checking here if you're running through and it's pretty quiet. Watch out for the barbed wire outside. But from here you find yourself running out to these hills. It's important to make sure you're not getting followed or rotated on from someone coming from logging camp along the lake. But from here you're pretty much just running out in the sticks. If you do make it this far unattacked, then you are probably going to be fine. If you really wanted to, you could stick around in the rocks over there and go pop shots at the scavs or by the scav house. I do it all the time when I'm extracting in Outskirts, just for the fun of it, see if I can get an extra kill for some extra XP. But yeah, other than that, it's generally pretty peaceful. My friends, we have made it to the final route that we will be talking about today, and that is from just outside the military base, around the shore of the lake, under the logging camp, over to the Outskirts. So I pretty much use this if I'm doing a quest in the east half of the map and my extracts are on the west, or if I want to loot the military base for any particular reason, like if I'm looking for meds for that Soleo quest at the start, things like that. So this I find is generally extremely safe for how close it takes you to the logging camp. It does put you out in the open, so it's kind of nerve-wracking, but I'd say I've taken this extract or this path probably 40 to 50 times in the entire time I've been playing Tarkov, and I think I've been attacked on this area of the map maybe twice. I only remember one time, but I'm giving it an extra time for the benefit of the doubt. I've been attacked by players maybe once or twice. I know I've been attacked by Sherman in this forest probably 2 times, I think. So that would make a total of 3 that I remember, but it's important to check that campsite on your way through here because there's good loot there. You can find physical bitcoins or flash drives in the mouth of that tent. But from here, you just keep circling around the lake, and eventually you make it to the rocks that we ran around for the last pathway that we took to the Outskirts extract from checkpoint. From here, it's pretty much exactly the same. You run around in the sticks. Be careful not to go too far south. Those are the signs that mark the border, and if you go past those signs, then you'll get sniped at or blown up by mines, either one. But like we talked about in the previous route, you can stand up on these rocks if you feel safe from behind. Look at the scavs running around the house and the field and take some pot shots, see what happens. And when you're good and ready to go, or if you're frustrated about missing your shots, that's when you just backpedal and you head right on into the extract area. Again, that route is surprisingly safe. I always feel a little nervous when I take it, but I've had a pretty solid track record of surviving it, so I guess I have to vouch for it. Well, I know it was a lot to take in, but I appreciate you taking the time to check out my guide. I hope you learned something, and I hope it helps you in future raids. If you did learn something and you think it will help in future raids, I would really appreciate it if you would dab on that like button, yeet that subscribe, and turn notifications on for more Tarkov guides and content. And feel free to leave me a comment if you have any more questions, or if there are any other guides you want to see me make.